Hello everyone, and I apologize for my voice. I am a little bit sick, but will try to do my best. I'm Nico. I work also at the Tyndall Centre for Climate Change Research, and I'm a four-year PhD researcher and working on the informal sector and waste management. And today I'm going to present the part of my research that is motivated with informality and circularity in e-waste management. And I think some people also attended a presentation by Chris Kennedy in the morning. He explained a little bit what the e-waste is, but I think a brief introduction is not going to do something bad. So e-waste is any type of discarded device that it reached its end of life, so not because of the user don't like it anymore, maybe they are like old-fashioned. So you can see here like a lot of motherboards in landfill. And what is interesting about e-waste, I will summarize it into three main elements. The first one is that e-waste is presents the highest rate of increase among all the type of waste. Every year more than 60 megatons of e-waste is generated. And so there are big volumes of e-waste in landfills and in cities as well. But what is special about e-waste is that you have the good guys and the bad guys. And when I say the good guys, you have valuable elements in the e-waste such as the selenium, platinum, gold, and indium. And also you have all the bad guys which are hazardous materials and elements like mercury, lead, cadmium, and brominated flame retardants, which are some kind of like components that they put on the plastic in order not to set on fire. So this is interesting for circular economy because we want to recover the good guys and try to avoid the bad guys. Yeah, so this is the connection between e-waste and circular economy. And what is happening? Sorry. What is happening around the world with the treatment of management of e-waste is quite uneven. You can see that in Europe you have a high rate of generation among 60 kilograms of e-waste per capita and a high treatment rate around 43%. But if you compare the global north with the global south, wow, surprise! The global south is not doing that great. Africa, for example, even though they have a lower generation per capita, the treatment of e-waste is quite low. If we go to America, it says that the treatment of e-waste is around 9%, but this is also considered in the States and Canada, which have a very high rates of the treatment. So you can see that in South America, the treatment of e-waste is not more than 3%. I'm focusing my study on Chile. Chile is an iconic case because they have the highest generation of e-waste in the region, but also they are very progressive regarding the circular economy agenda. They are promoting a circular economy roadmap, trying to decouple the economic growth from the waste generation. And they have a very special law that is a law that the European Union applied 20 years ago, which is called the Extended Producer Responsibility. I don't know if you know it. The EPR law is a law that's trying to incorporate the producers and importers of products into the waste management in order to increase the treatments of rate. The rate of treatment, sorry. So what is happening in Chile is that because of the EPR law, they are trying to reach a 45% of treat by 2035, but what is happening now is that the formal capacity is no more than 3%. So we have a capacity gap here. And when I say formal capacity, what I mean is like the companies which are officially registered to do this kind of job, because we have the informal sector, and informal sector, they are also called waste pickers, informal recyclers. In every country, they are also called catadores, recicladores, and they have like 100 names. And they are people who collect the waste on the street as a way of living. They collect this waste, they treat the waste as much as they can, and they sell it to intermediates in order to generate income. Okay? For people of the global north, maybe these are not that famous, but if you go to any country in South America, you're going to see them around all the time. They are part of the landscape. And in the case of Santiago de Chile, which is the capital, there are more like 6,000 waste pickers, which are responsible for up to 70% of the treatment of waste. Okay? So what is happening, not just in Chile, but in South America, is that informal recyclers are the recycling. Okay? So on the one hand, we have the formal capacity that seems not to be enough, and we have the informal capacity, which it seems that they are doing a lot, so it's very natural to think that they should try to work together, but surprise. The problem here is that waste pickers are being excluded from urban waste management system, mostly because this very ambitious circular economy agenda policies. Here you can see a march of informal recyclers protesting against the EPR law in Chile. But even though I'm focusing my research on Chile, exclusion is a global problem. You can see here as well the people in Panama protesting against this new circular economy agenda that is excluding them, and also in South Africa. But why is this a problem? This is a problem because of two main reasons. First, if they are excluded, all the knowledge and experience that they have is going to be lost. And the second place is they belong to the most vulnerable social groups, so if they are excluded, also they are going to be further marginalized and their social, they're going to be affected economically and socially. Okay? So, sorry, I need to drink some water. What I'm trying to do with my whole research, my PhD research, is to understand how can the informal sector can contribute to promoting a circular economy. But today I'm going to present my results more related with how is the informal sector contributing to the circular economy. In order to do that, I really appreciate that Royce already explained what life cycle assessment is, because I can skip it a little bit, but I apply a multidisciplinary approach. I went to Chile, I spent there 3 months, and I interviewed and I talked to people, and I took pictures and videos to understand how is the e-waste treated in there. And what I try to do with the interviews and participant observation is to identify the different profiles of informality, because according to the literature, when you talk about the informal sector, it's not only one group of people, you have like different profiles of informality. And identify the different profiles to characterize them, and also to identify different routes that they are used for the treatment of e-waste. And in order to compare the environmental performance of these different routes, I use a life cycle assessment in which I model how they are treating how they are treating a 19 inches LCD monitors for the specific case of Santiago de Chile, which is the quantitative part. Okay. Some results, as I told you before, informality is a spectrum. There is not only one informal sector. But also there are some other actors that they are like interacting to the waste management networks. And I identified 4 profiles in Santiago de Chile for the management of a LCD monitor. The first one is the treatment company, that they collect monitors, try to refurbish as much as they can. If they cannot, they disarm it, and in order to export the materials to international markets, mostly Asian markets, South Korea and Japan. Then we have the municipal collector. They are responsible for up to 90% of the monitors nowadays, and they just collect and dispose the monitors. Then we have the flea market trader. They are people who collect, also try to refurbish the monitors, and they try to sell it in the flea markets. And if they cannot do it, they just disarm it and sell it to intermediates, which are national companies. And finally, the scrap collector, which is quite similar to the flea market trader, but they don't refurbish. They just collect, disarm, and sell to the intermediates. So I think for the sake of this presentation, something interesting is to compare these different profiles regarding circularity and informality. And we can see that regarding circularity, the more linear is the municipal collector. They don't have any recuperation of any kind of material. And on the other hand, we have that the flea market traders and treatment companies, they are quite similar because they refurbish and recycle a lot. Okay? And regarding informality, for the case of Chile, you are formal if you are paying taxes. So Shakira would be informal because she's a but sorry, I didn't plan that. So in Chile, flea market trader and scrap collectors, they are informal because they are not registered to pay taxes and they don't pay taxes. So what's happening that the Municipal collector and treatment companies, they are formal. One thing that you can see from this slide is like formality doesn't imply a circularity, which is one of the things I have to write about. I'm going to focus, again, this is what Royce also did. She did a life cycle assessment of the waste generated in the airport. I did a life cycle assessment of a discard monitor, and what we do in a life cycle assessment is to identify all the processes that are part of the treatment of a monitor. In this case, it's the collection, the transport, the pretreatment, the refurbishing, the recycling, the disposal. We quantify all the energy and material inputs, and we try to estimate the environmental impacts or benefits. Okay, I use EcoInvent as a database and SIMAPro is a software to model this. And unlike Royce, I'm going to show all the categories that the SIMAPro offers, which can be a lot. Okay, and can I do this? So I think, these numbers are normalized, and when I say normalized, it's, they are all related to the highest value for each category, okay? So that's why they go between -1 to +1. And you can see that in the left side of the graph, the flea market trader and the treatment companies, they have the treatment of a LCD monitor through these two profiles means environmental benefit. This is a little bit like a methodological issue, but I am assuming that every time that they are refurbishing a monitor, this means that one monitor or part of a monitor is not being produced, okay? So it's replacing the production of a new monitor. And surprise, the flea market trader is doing better than the treatment company. And this is something that for us was a very important result. And on the right side, you can see that scrap collector and municipal collectors, they are the treatment of LCD monitors through these two profiles. It's an environmental burden. I think it's interesting as well to know that even though municipal collector is the most linear solution, sometimes they are even performing better than the scrap collector, which are more circular. For example, for the marine ecotoxicity or the freshwater ecotoxicity. One of the things that we discovered also by modeling and by doing the field research is that all these environmental benefits from this left side depend mostly on the capacity that they have to refurbish. So one thing that I did is to assume a scenario in which they are not refurbishing, okay? And if you see, this is a graph in which I am assuming that the flea market traders and the treatment companies that they refurbish in real life, they are not doing it. You can see that there is not a profile that is performing better than the other ones in this case. Even though this is like a virtual scenario, this is not really happening. I think it's important because of the policy context of Chile. The authorities of Chile, they are trying to ban the second-hand markets, the flea markets, because of many reasons. First of all, they are not paying taxes, and also they assume that the people, these informal recyclers who are refurbishing, they can be exposed to different hazardous materials. So there is a policy to try to ban these flea markets, but we see if this happens, all of the benefits that the flea markets have are going to be jeopardized, and if they focus on recycling, this is going to mean environmental burden. And some of the fun things that we can do with life cycle assessment as well is to variate some kind of parameters, and this is something that I did as well to respond to one very preoccupation that some authorities have, and I'm going to explain here. When I interview a lot of authorities in Chile, they told me that they are afraid that the informal recyclers are trying to go from human power vehicles for collection to light vehicles. And they said, because they assume that if informal recyclers are working with the human power vehicles, they are a low carbon emission collection means. And something that we can do with life cycle assessment as well is to see if this is true or not. And we model, for example, for the flea market trader, what happens if they go from human power vehicles to electric vehicles and light vehicles. And you can see that it's negligible, okay? It doesn't change at all. All the bars are the same. And another thing that is part of the circular economy roadmap for Chile is the idea of promoting a local economy for recycling. What is happening in Chile is that most of the materials that are being collected, they send it to Asia and also European markets. And this is the first time that somebody's trying to quantify what's going to happen if they go for a local market. And we saw that if Chile is trying to promote a local market, for example, for the treatment companies, and the blue bar, which is the local market, is always the best option. Okay? In cases, for example, like the awesome information is happening that if we try to privilege the use of local markets, we go from a huge environmental impact to an environmental benefit. Okay? Some conclusions about my research. My research is wider than this. I'm just trying to focus on what I'm doing with circular economy, but based on my numbers and also literature, the informal sector is key promoting a circular economy, not only because of the volumes that they treat, but also because of the ways in which they are doing this. And this, I think, is the most important for this session, that formality does not always imply circularity. In this case, we saw that the municipal collections, they are formal, but they are not circular at all. And I think this is also a little bit spicy, that circularity does not always imply environmental sustainability, and this is something that I was able to quantify with the case of the the scrap collector when you compare it to municipal collector as well. Yeah, so that's my presentation. Thank you.
Questions for Nico?
Yeah.
Hi. So it seems the analysis being negative or positive, like you mentioned, relies a lot on refurbished monitors replacing production. And I mean, I have no idea if that is the case, but is that something that is true, or does it just increase the overall supply of monitors, and by doing that, it's like an assumption in LCA?
And the answer is it depends on how you consider it and the focus of your research. If you want to really identify what is that in my case, it's very important to consider that it's a benefit because one profile is obviously not doing it. Okay, so yeah, I think it's a methodological approach. It happens. That's the question that you asked as well. Like, to what extent you are going to consider that this is going to be something that is going to change somehow what is going on. And the way in which I do it, I think in a differential way. I try to see every time that we recycle or we refurbish this product in particular, I assume that the market is in equilibrium, So what's going to happen with this new particular monitor? It's quite intriguing with a lot of assumptions, but I think it's the best way, because what is the other option? To consider that of course, some people, they are going to go for a second-hand monitor. That means that they are not going to buy a new one. This actually happened. I don't know if I answered the question.
Can I ask that in maybe a different way? So is there any relationship, or is the data available between the countries or regions that have an increase in refurbished things sold and a reduction in terms of new things sold? Because I just feel like is that data available?
Yeah, no, it's not available. I mean, most of the data I'm using here for my models is an adaptation for generic scenarios, and most of that, I think the UK has a robust database, but no one cares about South America, so we don't have numbers for these specific cases. But that doesn't mean that the results are, I mean, they're maybe not that specific, but you saw the differences. They are like gigantic. So maybe if we improve some kind of like processes or numbers, of course they're gonna affect the big numbers, but I don't think it's gonna be the case.
Yeah.
Hi. You mentioned about the transportation, the mode of transportation is negligible.
Yeah.
And is that the LCA, the analysis that you've done, is it like based on distance, or is it based on energy, fuel, buttons?
Both. Yeah, I create a model in which I model different distances and different type of transport with different energy consumption and emissions. The thing is, like, they are all the day working on the streets, but if you compare it with like a big truck that's going from one country to another country, it's very little,
Last one, quick.
Yeah, can I have one more question? First of all, thank you for actually shining light for all the different areas of sustainability beyond net zero and energy. So that was very helpful. Yes, I was gonna ask about next steps and how is this going to help to influence what is happening in the country?
Yeah, that's the last part of my PhD research, but we know already that there are some things that the informal sector is doing great, and that the formal sector is not doing that great. So what we're trying to see is some kind of like combine these experiences. I identify that what the formal sector is doing great is the agility. They are very good at identifying the business where sell stuff very easily. The formal sector is more strict. They are not that flexible. The formal sector also is very capital. That means that they can reach places that the formal sector cannot go, like small houses or apartments, and that's something that the formal sector can integrate as well. And finally, they are flexible regarding the time schedules. You know, they adapt themselves to the consumer's generation and activity. And that's something that, so to wrap it up, I think what I'm trying to do is to promote formalization strategies that take the best from both worlds. Yeah.
Please join me in thanking Nico again.